12.2 solid waste updates. We'll bring back Mr. Fraser.
Thank you. Good evening, members of council. Tonight, this report provides options to accommodate the new tipping fees pardon me, at the Resource Recovery Center, and also to present options for the purchase of automated carts for the purposes of collecting recycling. We'll speak a little bit about the cost of disposing waste at the Resource Recovery Center. So they've updated their bylaw rates with an increase in tipping fees. Generally, that covers off a couple things. An increase for cost to dispose of waste, a tipping fee, if you will, at the Roosevelt landfill in Washington State. Also, it includes structuring of fees to support operational costs at the RRC, and also consolidating some debt payments for the construction of the RRC as well. That's the new Waste Transfer Center. So that's the tipping fee increases from the QRD. The other piece is the collection carts. In February of 2025, Council provided direction for staff to report back on some options and impacts for the purchase of recycling bins, obviously prior to 2026 budget. And based on that research that staff has done, we're recommending that the automated carts for recycling be included in the draft 2026 budget at a cost of $692,000. Due to the lack of grant funding that's available for the recycling carts, staff are recommending that the cost of purchasing the recycling carts be funded through an internal loan from the Water Reserve capital account. And then that would be paid back through the solid waste revenue fees generated from an increase to the user rate over a period of 5 years. And just to comment a little bit more about automated recycling, we've been looking for an opportunity to complete our automated collection. So at the moment we service our citizens with automated waste collection and then automated organics collection. So this would complete the set, I guess. It does offer some efficiencies in collection, specifically less manpower. So what we do with 2 trucks currently, we would do with a single truck in a day. And typically it's around 600 collections, I think. Sorry, I think it's 550 collections for each day that the truck is out collecting. So we would basically have 1 truck out on the street for recycling rather than to have 2. So we'd save some manpower costs there. So that's reflected in these calculations as well. So the manpower savings would be around $26,000 per year. And then some of that's offset by a minor or a reduction in revenue from Recycle BC of around $9,600. And that's because the rate for automated container collection is less than the rate for manual collection. So implementing automated recycling would result in a savings to the program of around $16,000 per year net. So the new bylaw rates that are proposed here include the QRD tipping fees, and then there's a piece for the recycle carts in there. And again, that's borrowed from the Water Reserve over a period of 5 years. There's some operational cost savings, which I just referenced, of around $16,000 per year. That's baked into that new rate. And then the new rate comes in at around $245.35 for 2026. What does that look like in the region? If I compare that with our friends and neighbors that offer similar services, that puts the new Powell River rate probably about mid-pack in comparison with other municipalities. So the range, I think the high is City of Courtenay at $357 per year. The low right now, Town of Ladysmith at $168. So the new proposed rate would come in around $245. So that's about mid-pack. So you know that we're getting decent value for the service, for the cost. So it's not too high and not too low. Again, mid-pack number. Any other comments I'll make is that automated collection typically provides much safer collection environment for workers. There's a physical toll to manual collection that can lead to increased injuries. Typically, manual collection requires reaching, twisting, lifting at 500 to 700 locations each day. So it averages about 545 collections each day. There's no standardized containers currently for recycling collection, so it makes for awkward lifting, and most locations have more than one container or pile of recycling to collect. So in summary, the carts provide a quicker, more efficient method of collection, and less time is needed to complete the collection route. So with that, I'll open it up to questions. Thank you.
Mr. Fraser, I've got Councillor Southcott, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Fraser. Garbage has been a fascinating topic for many years for me. I note, though, it's like a fairly big number, the 692,000 for curbside collection for the carts. However, so my question is, has the city quantified both actual and potential injuries in numbers of time lost and compo claims, et cetera, for us, and or are numbers known elsewhere? And the reason why I ask this, my context is knowing that not many years ago, the BC Ambulance Service invested $45,000 approximately per ambulance, which adds up to quite a big investment. And the justification was injury prevention. It was expected that the return would be, that would pay for that investment inside of 3 years for that that institution. Of course, there's a lot of lifting involved there as well, but we all know that lifting and twisting is the #1 back injury mechanism. And there's lots of that, which you just referred to. So do we know numbers? I mean, I would expect, I know what I expect, but just wishing you to speak to the savings possibly for an investment like this.
Sure. Yep. Through the chair. So I think the payback isn't so much in. Yeah, I'll maybe just reference a number of safety items that. So we looked it up to find out what we've experienced here at the city. It's not a ton. It's I think there was 15 in the last 6 years of reported MSI injuries or musculoskeletal injuries, usually lower back and things like that. So it's not a huge number. It just isn't, but it's certainly there. I will say it's probably the #1 talked about item at all the safety committee meetings. So just trying to put things into place to make things more consistent, to cut down on the number of times that staff have to grab and lift and put things above their shoulders. So yeah. So that's probably what I can say for the stats that we have. And as far as operational savings, it's that 16 grand a year net savings is what we would realize on an ongoing basis.
Sir Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I wanted to call you Rod, but I should call you by the proper name, but anyway. Director of Infrastructure. I actually spoke to a gentleman who hurt himself in this particular job, and I think the toll is maybe difficult to quantify on the perspective of the city, but the toll on that person's life and what he can do with his kids and how he lives his life now is really extreme. And so I think we want to prevent impacting families and households with those kinds of injuries. And so the automated trucks that we bought for picking up the automated bins should have some automated bins to pick up. Otherwise, we're not realizing the full value of those trucks we spent the money on for picking up in an automated way. And we're still having people maybe even more awkward because those trucks aren't actually set up for manual lifting and putting stuff in the trucks. They're set up for the automated system. So they're not even really compatible necessarily as the other older trucks were. So I think this was all part of our discussion when we asked you to go ahead and come forward with a report to let us know what this costs. My question is the 2366 that's going to pay back the and you said 692 annually, but you meant a one-time purchase of 692, right? And that we would pay back annually with the 2366 per household per year over the 5-year period. Does that fee then get taken off after the 5 years and it's paid back, or have we thought that far ahead? Is it a short-term increase in fees or?
Well, thank you through the chair. Yes, a short-term increase in fees. So after that 5th year is done, we'll review that fee every year, but it would drastically reduce down from that $23. There might be a remaining $5 or something to fund the replacement of the carts in 12 years time, but it won't be $23.
Okay, it'll be something else maybe that goes into reserves to maintain the bins. Okay.
That's correct through the chair to build that reserve up again.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Palm.
Yes, thank you through the chair. Just want to say, I was a little hesitant when we were going through all this bins and bin selection and how this was all going to work, but I have to say, I'm so impressed with our employees and the job they do on picking up those bins. It's a great service, and I'm sure it's made everybody's job a little easier having the automated. We live in an automated society. That's the way to go. So I'm all for this. I didn't realize that. The one question I do have is 226. The bylaw rate will be 163. So what is the current bylaw rate for 2025?
Thank you. Through the chair, at the moment, the current bylaw rate is that one that you've referred to, Councillor Palm. It's 163.50 is what it is at the moment.
It'll stay the same for 226.
For 26, the proposal, it would be going up to 245, and that would put us about mid-pack in comparison with our neighbors and friends.
That 225 includes the RD tipping fee and the cart fee.
Yes, it does through the chair.
So what is the overall bylaw rate right now in this year?
In 2025, the current rate is $163.50 on an annual basis. And with these changes or these additions, it would come to $245 per year.
Okay, so I've heard through the grapevine that there is perhaps a change when we send this debris out of town in terms of the U.S. site. Are they now switching from us paying in Canadian dollars to U.S. dollars?
Thank you through the chair. I know I will say that I'm not aware of whether the fees are paid in Canadian American, but it translates to us in Canadian. But I know that, and I believe it's a carrier that's increased their fees to get the product down to the landfill as well. So there was a 15% increase in that fee as well.
So, yeah, I just had to clarify. And, you know, when you put this chart together, charging 2366 for 26, 27, 28, little misleading because that $23 will be charged over the 5 year each year, correct? And then it ends.
Correct, yeah.
Thank you.
I think Councillor Elliott, you might have had a follow-up to that specific question, or is that something new?
Yeah, I wanted to speak to the regional district contract for taking garbage down to
I'll
Washington.
give you a moment for that, and then we'll go to Councillor.
So that contract was signed for, was it 2 years or 3? It might have been 3, a 2-year. It was a 2-year contract signed in the spring with a fixed contract amount for that 2 years, but it was considerably higher than what we had done before. And so that's been worked into the new tipping fees over at the regional district. And it is, the contract's in Canadian dollars. So yeah, so we know what to expect, and it's by weight, not volume. And so the things that we do to take heavy things out of our garbage and use organics considerably reduces the weight that we are sending in those trucks. So keeping the garbage separate helps keep our fees down. And we are also examining over the next 2 years over at the regional district possible alternatives to sending it to Washington. So that's coming up in a report. I don't know when exactly, but soon.
I got Councillor Isaacson, then Councillor Joe.
Thank you. I'm going to raise a question. I think that Councillor Almeida asked the last time this came to us. Given that recycling and garbage are both every 2 weeks, thinking outside the box, is there any feasibility of having some sort of like lid cover to designate the same bin for recycling week versus garbage week to avoid the new bin purchase, and instead just alternate the use of the garbage bin and not have a third bin?
Thank you. Through the chair, you know, that's an interesting one, and and we find that people use their bins to store as well. You know, so it would be probably a tough sell, I guess, to get them to use it for dual purposes. We do get the occasional complaint just about you know, space and where do I put these things and things like that. So I think that would be challenging for most folks to accomplish.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's kind of like it's challenging for some and beneficial for others. I'm someone who doesn't have a garage, and so they're just sitting in my driveway, taking up space. And so it would benefit me and other people who have tiny garages to have fewer. I can't store stuff in there anyways because it's outside and bears are gonna get in. Okay, that was one question. But so just to clarify, you're not aware of any like bin covers existing, that this is a thing that any municipalities have used?
No, I'm not, through the chair. I'm not aware of anything like that.
Thank you. And then it's the bylaw rate it says per household. Is it per household or per bin? Because there are some households that have more than one bin. I think we know that some households have more than one bin, and some households that have more than one bin, we don't know because they somehow got another bin. And so I'm wondering if we know where multiple bins exist, if there's a possibility for an audit, and whether this fee is per household or per bin.
Yes, through the chair. So the bylaw is set up to accommodate residents that wish to have a second bin. So it's not the same full rate that they get charged, but they do get charged a premium for that second bin. So so there are multiple households that choose to have 2 compost bins, for example. But for the second bin, it's there's a fee attached specifically for that second bin that they pay on a yearly basis. Same for the solid waste as well. And I think lending and what that allows for people to do is just up and downsize. Our households comfortable with the single solid waste garbage bin. There's other places that actually have 2 bins, and I think you can go up to 3 is the maximum.
Got one more question, but I can wait second round.
Our CAO's got a comment before I go to Councillor Dope.
Thank you, through the chair. Just to clarify the solid waste rates for 2025, as per what Councillor Palm had asked, it's actually $153 is the bylaw rate for this year, and then next year goes up to 163.50.
Thank you, son, CAO. Councillor Dope.
Yeah, so I've been paying attention to this over the week, and I was concerned when I first read it about taking a loan from the Water Capital Reserve, because I think that reserve is there for a particular purpose, for upgrading and repairing the water lines that the city has, to make sure we've got the money to do that maintenance when it comes up. But seeing that we've got a 5-year plan to repay the money with interest makes me happier about that. I see the current price for weekly organics, biweekly garbage, and biweekly recycling is $163.50, which is right at the bottom of all of the comparative municipalities that we're looking at on the list. With the increase in the organics and the increase for the carts for the recycling, that goes up to $245.35, which, looking at the other municipalities, is kind of right in the middle there. It's kind of on the low end, actually, I think about that. So I think that's good. I can see the concept of saving on injuries for the people who are collecting the recycling and the organics, and that's a good idea. And I think it's going to make our streets look better too. Currently, I'm using the blue recycling boxes, and it takes 2 of them. If we have one regular sized cart, that'll probably be efficient for the 2 weeks. And I think it's a good idea, so I'll be supporting this.
Before we go to the second round of questions, I've got a couple of my own. I've lived in communities before that my residential recycling was separated in advance. I had a yellow bag for paper products, a gray bin for glass, and blue bin for everything mixed, which is counter to the whole automated system, because that wasn't automated at all. I've always been curious, I guess, from logistical standpoint, why ours was like not segregated in that way, and I guess pros and cons as to doing that. It's kind of an open-ended question.
Thank you, through the chair. And I wouldn't say that I've had a lot of experience with that particular method. If you were going to bundle like cardboard and like cans and things like that into separate piles, kind of thing. So I don't know if I'd do it justice with an answer. What I can say is almost all the municipalities that we've looked at do it the way that we do. And I think maybe there's some confidence in just that collection method and how it does work well.
Fair enough. I know with a bigger bin, it would make it harder to separate it anyway. So I was just curious. The second question, the loan repayment right now is planned for 5 years. And I was curious if that was a legislative requirement to do it within 5 years, or if we were able to stretch it out to 7 or 10 just to lower the cost per household.
Thank you, through the chair. We did look at different options just to spread it out a little bit longer. The recommendation came from our CFO through finance and his vast experience, I will say, to shorten it up and go with that 5 years.
Thank you. Councillor Isaacson, I think Councillor Elliott both had a second question.
Thank you. So the report mentions that the revenue from Recycle BC is lower for automated cart pickup because there's not that same visual inspection. I know that sometimes workers will refuse to pick up if they see something that doesn't fit. Do you have a sense of what the scale or percentage of rates of refusal for pickup are right now?
Through the chair, could I ask a follow-up question? Are you thinking about contamination rates? Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, contamination rates, like the number of bins that did and not picked up for that reason.
Yes, through the chair. I would say probably probably, I'm just going to guess, just to educate a guess, probably around 10, no more than 10 per day, I would say.
I thought you were going to say 10%. I'd have a little freak out, but 10 per day is much,
Our last numbers from Recycle BC, who did an audit, we were well less than 10%.
okay.
Sure, Elliot.
Interestingly enough, my comment was going to be not so much a question, but a comment on some of Councillor Isaacson's questions that relate to contamination, because her earlier question was also about using bins for dual purpose. Currently, our city has some of the lowest contamination rates in the business. We do really, really well here. It keeps our costs down. If our contamination goes up, our costs go up along with it. And dual purpose of bins increases chances of contamination.
Same thing, I didn't mind down that road because of these bins with a cover on them, you know what's in that bin when it's being unloaded. So the contamination rate may go up as a result. So I would suggest that you have a thorough education plan in place. Recycling.
Thank you. And through the chair, just we would do our standard procedure. We've done it a couple times now with the rollout of the waste collection carts and the compost collection carts. We absolutely barrage the city with our information and education campaign. So we'll work pretty hard to make sure we're reaching everybody as well.
Perfect. We're seeing we've exhausted questions. Who would like to practice their public speaking? Councillor Southcott.
Move that staff be directed to bring back amendments to the municipal solid waste collection bylaw 2738-2024 to include the new tipping fees from the Castet Regional District. Should I go on to the second?
Second by Councillor Isaacson. We need both at the same time?
Sorry about that. Through the chair, they weren't designed to be because we didn't know if there would be. So either doing if there's a thought that they could both pass, you could do it at the same time though.
Go ahead and just continue reading them.
And that staff include the cost of purchasing carts for curbside collection of recycling in the city's 2026 to 2030 financial plan through an internal loan from the Water Capital Reserve account in the amount of $692,000 to be paid back with interest through increased recycling rates over 5 years, and that the recycling rates in municipal solid waste collection bylaw 2738 be increased by $23.66 per household to pay for the carts.
He's seconded by Councillor Isaacson. Any discussion? Councillor Isaacson.
Yeah, there's one small concern I have about part 2 of this motion, and not enough to vote against it, I think. But I generally, my preference is progressive taxation, meaning that the higher value the home that you have, your taxes go up accordingly, rather than a set fee per household where everybody pays the identical amount, because there's different wealth associated with different values of assessed value in homes. And so I'm wondering, maybe through the chair to Mr. Beauregard, CFO, whether an alternative exists to fund this through taxation generally and have it set aside specific for this purpose so that the taxation is more progressive as opposed to the same fee per household.
Through the chair, it's always possible to have a variable tax to pay for something, but it gets away from the user principle of user pay. And traditionally, some of these services are also treated as utilities, which means they are user pay and could be split off into a utility. When you have a user pay system, it also makes the user aware of what they're using, as opposed to having a blanket tax fee to pay for it.
Thank you.
Councillor Elliott had a comment or no?
Yes, one of them was a little bit tongue in cheek in that, how do we know who moved and seconded this motion since it was read by two different councilors? But anyway, I'll let our corporate officer worry about that. Typically, we have one mover and one seconder. but-
Counselor Self, I read the whole thing.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
sure. Quite sure.
My bad headache, I guess. My bad. I'm in favor of the motion. I think it's unfortunate that things keep costing more, but we're not going to solve that problem by not picking up our garbage in the safer manner. I think upgrading how we do things may actually see some savings down the road that we can't add up right away. And so I'm hoping that by doing things through a user fee, if we are seeing those savings down the road, that can result in less increases in the future because we won't be necessarily having to increase budgets to cover increases in staff payments and so forth because we're already collecting enough because we saved in injuries and staff time off and overtime and stuff like that. So we won't be able to measure that until we've been trying the new automated system for a while.
Isaacson.
One final, I swear to God, final question through the chair to staff. I'm curious about the how you distinguish which recommendations you have to send to budget deliberations versus direct approval right now. So for example, transit, library, those are going to discussion and budget deliberations where this is meant to be inserted into the financial plan. And so if you could speak to the how those are distinguished and the choices to do one versus the other for this one.
I can jump in on this, but if I get it wrong, then Director Bouillard can correct me. The big difference is that this requires a bylaw to be passed before the end of the year, so we need a decision now to move this forward in order to have enough readings of the bylaw take place in December to have it finalized. And because it's a different model of how the fund's going to be brought forward through the utility bylaw, that's the main difference.
Thank you.
Seems like Mr. Bjorgaard's acceptable of that answer. So, okay. So seeing no further hands, I will call the question. All in favor? Seeing nobody that didn't put their hand up, that is unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr. Fraser.
Thank you.
Before we move on to our